Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to present our work that is entitled Winter Wheat Suppression Capacity of Camelina Sativa. I would like to say that we have introduced data from a third year, so our results are more complete than those we sent in the abstract. So I have to say that my expertise field are not oilseed crops or industrial crops, but weeds and weed science. And as you all know, weed science is a science that studies the biology and ecology of weeds and also the weed control among other things. And you also know that the control of weeds in the last 60, 70 years has been based on herbicides. And this has led us to the evolution of herbicide-resistant weeds. Under this scenario, integrated weed management raises as the most important alternative. Integrated weed management uses different kind of tools for managing weeds, like those chemical ones, mechanical ones, as harrowing with flexible tines, and cultural ones, like using different moments for managing the soil or the crops. Among the cultural methods, crop diversification could be considered the most important one because it implies different management requirements, and the crop itself can be considered as a tool. Here is where our interest in weed management matches Camelina, because in our semi-arid region of northeastern Spain, the short life cycle of Camelina allows a flexible sowing date, so we can delay it, and this way we can kill all the merged weed seedlings. It also allows an early harvest, and this early harvest contributes to the avoidance of the weed seed rain. In this picture, you can see Anacyclus clavatus individuals that are still flowering, and Eruca vesicaria and Papaya roreas that are with immature fruits. They are still green. And of course, the fast growth of Camelina exerts a great competition against some of these weeds. So we have chosen Papaya roreas as an example for this study. Why? Because this is the most important dicotyledonous winter weed that presents a high competitive capacity and high seed production of up to 40,000 in competition with wheat or 800,000 without competition. And of course, it presents, it has evolved resistant biotypes to 2,4-D and LS inhibitor herbicides. So it's a great problem in our area, in great part of Europe. So our objective was to study the competitive capacity of Camelina. That is its weed suppression capacity, ultimately. Our experiment was conducted in LEIDA, and that is in the western part of Catalonia, in northeast Spain. And here you can see an aerial view of our university and where our experimental field is and where our experiment was established. In fact, the study was conducted over 3 seasons in different experiments, but that presented common treatments. Here, I have put an example of an experimental design with Camelina, barley, and empty plot that represents any other treatment that we could have established, like a second sowing date for Camelina, or another variety of Camelina. The sowing dates were all in November in 2018, 19, and 2020, with Camelina varieties GP 204 and Alba, both provided by Camelina Company, and we sow them at 8 kilograms per hectare. And we saw also the variety Meseta of barley at 200 kilograms per hectare. Plots were 15 meters long by 1 meters wide. And in each plot of Camelina and each plot of barley, we established 3 quadrats of 0.5 by 0.5 square meters, where we only left 5 plants of papaya royas. Additionally, we also established 3 controls without any competition of any crop. At harvest time of Camelina in May, plants of papaya royas were removed, and we measured fitness parameters like height, dry weight, number of branches, number of mature fruits, number of immature fruits and or flowers, number of seeds per fruit, and number of seeds per plant. In this slide, you can see the climatic conditions of the 3 years. The red line represents the mean monthly temperature. The blue columns are the cumulative rainfall every month, and the green arrows represent the Camelina's approximate cycle every year, from November to May. The 3 years differed mainly in the rainfall, and from November to May in 2018-19 we had 155 millimeters of rain, of which 71, I think, fell in November. So we had very dry winter and very dry spring. Next season, we almost doubled the rainfall. We had over 300 millimeters and with very humid spring. And last season, we had intermediate values of rainfall with 213 millimeters. In this table, we are showing the parameters of papaya royas in competition with Camelina and barley. Here we can see that the height of papaya royas was similar the first and the third year in all 3 conditions, but in the second season, the control plants were significantly higher than those competing with barley or Camelina. Despite this, the dry weight was much lower in competition with Camelina and barley than in the controls. So plants were much weaker than in the controls and quite similar to the other years. And we can underline here that the results of the dry weight obtained in competition with Camelina were much more stable than in competition with barley, because this last year, for some reason, papaya plants were very big in competition with barley. The number of flowers and fruits also is reduced compared to the control in both Camelina and barley. But here the most important thing maybe is that the proportion of flowers and immature fruits with respect to mature fruits is much lower in Camelina than in barley. And this happened all the 3 years. With respect to the seed production, we can see that the potential seed grain also is reduced with respect to the control. And even if in competition with Camelina, papaver can produce more seeds than barley. The real seed rain was lower in all 3 years, and this was because of the early harvest of Camelina with respect to barley. Here in this figure, we can see the difference in the fruit growth stage during the 3 seasons. And we can see that in the first and in the third season, we had some mature fruits that produced some viable seeds compared to the second season, where we only obtained immature fruits. So the seed rain this year was completely avoided. So as conclusions, we can see that Camelina was able to reduce the growth of papaver rares in all situations, that these reductions differ from that obtained by barley depending on the climatic conditions each season, that seed rain of papaver rares was reduced in more than 93% with respect to the control, and that 55 to 100% of the potential seed rain of papaver rares was avoided due to the early harvest of Camelina. And as general conclusions, we can also say that Camelina presents very useful management characteristics for the control of dicotyledonous winter weeds, and that it can be an important crop to be introduced in rotation with winter cereals, improving the integrity with management in semi-arid regions like that we have here. So thank you very much for your attention, and I will be very glad to answer any doubt or any question that you may have.